Reading from Reading from Canto 5 titled The Creative Impetus. Chapter number 5 titled Lord Rishabh Dev's Teachings. Verse number 4. नूनं प्रमत्तः कुरुते विकर्म यदिन्द्रियप्रीतय आपृणोति न साधु मन्ये यत आत्मनोऽयम् असन्नपि क्लेशद आसदेहः नूनं प्रमत्तः कुरुते विकर्म यदिन्द्रियप्रीतय आपृणोति न साधु मन्ये यत आत्मनोऽयम् असन् अपि क्लेशद आसदेहः नूनं प्रमत्तः कुरुते विकर्म यदिन्द्रियप्रीतय आपृणोति न साधु मन्ये यत आत्मनोऽयम् असन् अपि क्लेशद आसदेहः
नूनं प्रमत्तः कुरुते विकर्म यत् इन्द्रियप्रीतय आपृणोति न साधु मन्ये यत आत्मनोऽयम् असन्नपि क्लेशद आसदेहः
नूनं प्रमत्तः कुरुते विकर्म यदिन्द्रियप्रीतय आपृणोति न साधु मन्ये यत आत्मनोऽयम् असन्नपि क्लेशद आसदेहः नूनं प्रमत्तः कुरुते विकर्म यदिन्द्रियप्रीतय आपृणोति न साधु मन्ये यत आत्मनोऽयम् असन्नपि क्लेशद आसदेहः
What the word means? Nunam. Indeed. Pramattah. Mad. Kurute. Performs. Vikarma. Sinful activities forbidden in the scriptures. Yat. When. Indriya Pritaye. For sense gratification. Apranoti. Engages. Na. Not. Sadhu. Befitting. Manye. I think. Yataha. By which. Atmanaha. Of the soul. I am. This. Asan. Being temporary. Api. Although. Kleshadaha. Giving misery. Asa. Became possible. Deha. The body. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification, by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. Purport: begging, borrowing, and stealing to live for sense gratification is condemned in this verse because such consciousness leads one to a dark, hellish condition. The four sinful activities are illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. These are the means by which one gets another material body that is full of miseries. In the Vedas, it is said, Asango hya ayam purushaha. The living entity is not really connected with this material world, but due to his tendency to enjoy the material senses, he is put into the material condition. One should perfect his life by associating with devotees. He should not become further implicated in the material body. ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुः श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिकाकान्त राधाकान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितनां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। नमः ओं विष्णुपादाय कृष्ण पृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। मूकं करोति वाचालं पंगुं लंघयते गिरिं यत्कृपातमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणं परमानन्दमाधवं श्रीचैतन्य ईश्वरं। हरिः ओम तत्सत्। Hare Krishna. Translation once again. When a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. He does not know that due to his past misdeeds, he has already received a body, although temporary. He has already received a body which, although temporary, is the cause of his misery. Actually, the living entity should not have taken on a material body, but he has been awarded the material body for sense gratification. Therefore, I think it is not befitting an intelligent man to involve himself again in the activities of sense gratification by which he perpetually gets material bodies one after another. So this is a very, very famous verse. Srila Prabhupada quotes it in almost every lecture. And while quoting, he says, Nunam pramattaha kurute vikarma. Mattaha means mad, pramattaha means prakrishta rupena mad. That means specially mad, extraordinarily mad. And what is that madness? Making sense gratification as the aim of life is that madness. So this is a very famous chapter of Teachings of Lord Rishabhdev. I think there is a small book also called Teachings of Lord Rishabhdev. And very nicely Rishabhdev, I was just seeing today morning, he has given very, very nice instructions. So the first verse is a very, very famous verse. there Rishabdev is telling. Basically, he is telling that human life is not meant for sense gratification, but it is meant for divine austerity. He says, my dear boys, all living entities who have accepted material bodies in this world, one who has been awarded this human form of life should not work hard day and night simply for sense gratification, which is available even for the dogs and hogs. Instead, we should engage in penance and austerity to attain divine possession of devotional service. By such activity, one's heart is purified, and when one attains this position, he attains eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and continues forever. So in today's verse, also some continuation is being talked about. In today's verse, it is being talked about how sense gratification leads to continuous and perpetual transmigration of material bodies. That's today's verse. And in the first verse, he is telling, Rishabdev is telling, that if one performs devotional service, he gets eternal blissful life, which is transcendental to material happiness and continues forever. The spirit soul, being eternal, is always into a perpetual condition only. Either it is perpetually in the spiritual consciousness or perpetually into the material consciousness, because that's the nature of the spirit soul. But misery comes when it is perpetually into the abnormal condition, that is the madness for sense gratification. In the next verse, Rishabdev talks about the causes of bondage and liberation. One can attain liberation from bondage only by rendering service to high advanced spiritual personalities. This is the cause of liberation. What is the cause of bondage? For those who are not interested in rendering service to Mahatmas, who associate with people fond of women and sex, the path to hell is wide open. So this is the cause of bondage. These Mahatmas were categorized into two categories by the purport by Srila Prabhupada. Mahatmas can be personalists and impersonalists. Both are samachitta, prashanta, vimanya, vaha, suhrida, sadhavoye. That means both are devoid of anger, they work for the benefit of everyone, they do not behave in any abominable way, and they also don't see faults in others. However, the devotees are superior. The personalists are superior to impersonalists. Both have been called samachitta. A devotee has fixed his chitta in Krishna, and for that purpose he has become very, very surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna. In that way he has become samachitta. However, an impersonalist is in the Brahman Sarvam Khalva Idam Brahma platform, where he is seeing everything and everyone as a part of the Supreme Brahman, and in that way he has become samachitta. However, devotees are superior, and the qualities of devotees is described in the next verse, verse number 3. I could find that Rishabdev highlighted essentially 4 categories. First of all, he said the devotees are very eager to revive Krishna consciousness and increase their love of Godhead, and they do not like to do anything that is not related to Krishna. That is the first quality of a devotee. And when we ask ourselves, or when I ask myself, am I a devotee? I should assess myself on these 4 parameters. Am I very eager to revive my Krishna consciousness and not engage in anything that is not related to Krishna? Parameter number 1. Parameter number 2, am I disinterested in mingling with people who are busy maintaining their bodies, eating, sleeping, mating and defending? Point number 3, am I detached from my home? And point number 4, am I only interested in collecting money just enough to keep my body and soul together? Actually, this verse is the description of an ideal household. And in this verse, it is being told very clearly A devotee can be a householder, devotee can be a servant of a guru. In all circumstances, devotee is Krishna conscious and does not ignore the prescribed duties. He is not indifferent to his duties, however, he does it in a way so that he is eager to revive his Krishna consciousness. Disinterested in mingling with worldly minded people. They are not attached to wives, children, friends, or wealth, although they may have. And lastly, they are interested in collecting only enough money to keep the body and soul together. So these are the instructions. And in today's verse, the theme of today's verse can be sense gratification leads to perpetual transmigration of the soul. That is the theme of today's verse. And then, very nicely in the first line only, Rishabdev is striking the chord by saying, when a person considers sense gratification the aim of life, he certainly becomes mad after materialistic living and engages in all kinds of sinful activity. So just because of one stupid attachment for sense gratification, he becomes mad. Now, what is the definition of mad? Since time immemorial, the devotees of the Lord have been calling the world mad. And since time immemorial, the world has been calling the devotees mad. So what is the definition of madness? When I have a sense of purpose which is driving my existence, and if that sense of purpose is matching the sense of purpose of someone else, then these two people will consider each other as friends. And if my sense of purpose is completely against someone else's sense of purpose, then for me that person is mad. Pramattaha. They don't know what they are doing in life. So from the point of view of Lord Krishna, from the point of view of Acharyas, from the point of view of Srimad Bhagavatam and Rishabdev, people who are mad after sense gratification, they are mad. People who are mad after Krishna, they are not mad. They are actually Krishna conscious. In the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when there is the conversation going between the Vishnu Dutas and the Yamadutas are telling Vishnu Dutas, you are wrong. And the Vishnu Dutas are telling to the Yamadutas, you are wrong. Actually, Vishnu Dutas have not yet started speaking, but when the Yamadutas tell Vishnu Dutas, you are wrong, Vishnu Dutas only smile. And in the purport, Srila Prabhupada writes that this is how the devotees will be treated in this world. They know, according to the teachings of the Acharyas and the Supreme Lord, that they are on the right path, but the world will tell them that they are on the wrong path, and when the world accuses them like this, they should simply smile. Knowing that we are right, knowing that devotees are right and the non-devotees are wrong. This is the confidence given by the Acharyas. So one should never come in doubt कि पागल कौन है, मैं या वो. According to Maharaj Rishabdev, those who are mad behind sense gratification, they are mad. And those who are mad behind Krishna, see, one has to become mad. If one does not choose to become mad behind Krishna, they will be forced to become mad behind sense gratification. So that is non-optional. Just like if you are on a treadmill, the only option you have is to keep running. You can't stand, you will be carried away. So similarly, in this material world, the only option you have is to become mad and start running behind Krishna. If one will not become mad and run behind Krishna, then they will be taken away, swept away by the madness of sense gratification. Now, this sense gratification is very, very peculiar. Why Rishabdev is telling that it leads one to madness? So there is a very nice verse in the Bhagavad Gita, Dhyayato Vishaya Pumsa Sangash Teshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamat Krodho Bhijayate. When we meditate on sense objects with a desire to enjoy them unlawfully, that means we do not legitimately own that sense object, but we want to enjoy it illegitimately, that is called Dhyayato Vishaya Pumsa, then we develop attachment to it. Attachment is different from seeing. For example, I am seeing a table. But after seeing the table, I have started to think, the table is very nice. I don't know how much he must have paid for that table. Nobody else has the table like that. But if I also get a table like that, with some extra appendages to it, then I'll become the best person in the society. This is called as Sangat Sanjayate Dhyato Vishyapumpa Pumsa Sangashteshu Pujayate. This is called association at the level of contemplation. Simply by seeing, one does not develop attachment. By deliberated, repeated thinking and contemplating on that sense object, one becomes attached. It's a matter of personal choice. Each and everybody can break that chain of thought process. It is our choice. But we choose not to break that thought process and continue in that line. And then we become attached. And once you become attached, then what happens? It leads to rise to lust. And lust, no matter how much you satisfy, whether you satisfy or whether you don't satisfy, in both cases it will lead to anger. If you don't satisfy, it is leading to anger because of starvation of the senses. And if you satisfy, it will lead to anger because the more you try to satisfy, the more you realize you cannot satisfy. So it leads to a frustrated anger. And then this leads rise to delusion, bewilderment, where you are not able to understand what you should do, how you should behave. This is the stage of madness. And then when you become mad, then you lose the sense of purpose of life. You forget for what purpose you came to the material world, for what purpose you started your journey of Krishna consciousness. Loss of memory. You forget the purpose of your life. And when you forget the purpose of your life due to madness, then complete intelligence is destroyed. Buddhinash. At that stage, one is not able to differentiate what is right and what is wrong, what I should do, what I should not do. Any advice given by Guru, Sadhu and Shastra at this stage will not work. And then one is ready to do all kinds of madness, which will lead to perpetual existence in the material world. Now this Dhyayato concept of meditation on sense objects works in the snowball effect. Initially there is a small meditation and some snow has started to get wrapped on it and it is becoming a small ball. At one point of time the ball is so small that one can kick it and it will go high in the sky and burst and finish. But if one does not kick it at the right time, then the ball becomes so big, so big, so big, so big that one day when I will be standing in front of the ball will roll me over and go. And I cannot do it. So this sense gratification has to be stopped in the beginning stages. It's just like riding a horse. When you ride a horse, then every horse has a desire to be a little independent. So the moment the rider notices that yes, the horse is trying to be independent, let me control it. But if the rider is lazy at that time, in fact, this is a point to be noted, that if one succumbs to sense gratification, one of the main reasons is that one is lazy. They do not want to be active in protecting themselves in spiritual life. They are not sincere and they are insincere and they are lazy in Krishna consciousness. That's why they succumb to desires of sense gratification, knowing that this will not give me any happiness. So when you do not control the horse in the beginning, then it is very difficult to control because the horse gains strength. Just like the ghosts and evil spirits, they gain strength when the sun sets. Similarly, the horse gains strength with more and more time it is uncontrolled. After a certain point, it is not possible to control the horse. So similarly, after a certain point of time, it will be very, very difficult to get back the senses under control. Another example which is coming to my mind. Suppose if you have got one backlog in your semester, and if you don't immediately clear it, then another semester, another 2 backlogs, another semester, another 3 backlogs, and after 2 years, it is impossible to clear. There are so many backlogs. So, I read the purport of this verse of Srila Prabhupada and I found a very nice point. Srila Prabhupada is saying, one who is not, therefore, in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses, is sure to ultimately fail. For the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. Therefore, if one is not on the platform of absorption in Krishna consciousness, everything is ultimately meant to fail. The rarest thing in this world is greed to progress in Krishna consciousness. Srila Rupa Goswami says that wherever you see that greed, immediately buy it, purchase it, steal it, do whatever you do. One who is greedy to progress in Krishna consciousness, only that person is progressing. Those who are not having this lolyam, they are not progressing. And without this lolyam, there is no scope for being absorbed. And lolyam is a gift of it. Lolyam is a gift from the Guru Parampara, it is a gift from Gaur-Nita, it is a gift from Lord Krishna. One has to sincerely beg for it, pray for it, and show that sincerity and eagerness. Sincerity of purpose and eagerness in the execution of Krishna consciousness is the level of lolyam which we can practice at our stage. And when we do that, maybe one day Krishna will fulfill our desire. Until unless we are absorbed, it is not possible. So therefore, we have to take inspiration from Mother Rukmini. How she developed greed and absorption for Krishna simply by hearing. I would like to recite the translation of that verse. O beauty of the worlds, having heard of your qualities which enter the ears of those who hear and remove their bodily distress, and having also heard of your beauty which fulfills the visual desires of those who see, I have fixed my shameless mind upon you, O Krishna. 2 points to be noted in this verse. Mother Rukmini is saying, the glorification of Krishna, when it enters the ears, it removes the bodily distress. One of the major distresses of a conditioned soul is the urge to satisfy the senses. One of the serious and the major urges. So when we continuously and seriously hear about the name, form, qualities and pastimes, this distress is removed. So one will not be disturbed by desires to satisfy the senses. And then they will become samachittaha and prashanta. They will not find fault in others. They will not be having that urge to satisfy the senses. They will be friendly to all, etc. And second point, which she is saying, that having heard of your beauty which fulfills the visual desires of those who see. This means one becomes fixed up in Krishna consciousness. Sometimes we get momentary taste in Krishna consciousness, but because of so much prolonged stay under the influence of Maya, it is natural for us to again go back to the conditioned state. So Krishna consciousness has to be practiced in a way so that we can engage our senses in bhakti, and at the same time it has to be done with increasing intensity every moment. I gave the example of a treadmill. The treadmill example is not fully correct as an analogy because the speed of the treadmill is constant. And if you keep running at a constant speed, you can manage to stay on the treadmill. But on the path of bhakti, not only you have to keep running against Maya, but over a period of time, you have to keep increasing your intensity of running also. If one is of the same intensity in Krishna consciousness which they were in the previous year, then also the Maya will swipe away. So this is the point which Mother Rukmini is trying to express. And we have to understand that we are trying to gratify, I am trying to gratify my senses. It will not give me any happiness. There is a very nice statement in Prabhupada's purport. When we come in contact with the beauty of the world, our senses get agitated. But when we come in contact with the beauty of Krishna, we get everlasting peace. We actually want peace, but somehow because of being pramatta, we are thinking, that by doing sense gratification we will get peace. But that is not possible. Only when we engage our senses in the service of Krishna, in the beauty of Krishna, then we will get peace. Otherwise, we will only be unsatisfied. People are ready to sacrifice anything and everything for the purpose of their sense gratification. But Krishna consciousness means sacrificing things for the pleasure of Krishna. This is the difference between sense gratification and bhakti. Sense gratification means sacrificing things for my own pleasure. Sacrificing my human form of life for the pleasure of my senses. Sacrificing my relationships for the pleasure of my senses. Sacrificing my opportunities for the pleasure of my senses. This will lead to perpetual existence in material life. However, if I learn to sacrifice those same things for the pleasure of Krishna, that is going to save me. This is called bhakti. Sounds very difficult at one point of time also because of being pramatta. So I found a purport in the 7th canto which is very hope-giving. It gives us direct way how to come out of this cycle of perpetual sense gratification. Srila Prabhupada is saying in the 7th canto, without the protection of Gaur Nitai, Krishna and Balram, one cannot get out of the dark well of ignorance in material existence. Which means that one will always remain in the dark well of material existence. The living entity must get strength from Nitai Gaur or Krishna Balram. Without the mercy of Nitai Gaur, there is no way to come out of this dark well of ignorance. As stated in Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 1.2, Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityanandau Sahodito Gaudo Daye Pushpavanto Chitro Sandau Tamonudau. I offer my respectful obeisances unto Shri Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, who are like the sun and moon. They have arisen simultaneously on the horizon of Gauda to dissipate the darkness of ignorance and thus wonderfully bestow the benediction upon all. This material world is a dark well of ignorance. The fallen soul in this dark well must take shelter of the lotus feet of Gaur Nitai, for thus he can easily emerge from the perpetual cycle of sense gratification. That's what we are talking about today. Without the strength of Gaur Nitai, simply attempting to get out of the clutches of matter and sense gratification by speculative knowledge will be insufficient. So this stopping of the perpetual cycle of sense gratification, I am right now pramatta. If I want to no longer remain pramatta, I can't do it anything. We are saying that okay, one has to focus on the beauty of Krishna, one has to not be lazy, one has to be active in spiritual life, one has to be increasing the intensity all the time, one has to develop that greed by sincere and serious sense of purpose all the time. But all this is not possible without the mercy of God. Spiritual life means being sincere in my purpose. One has to be sincere in their purpose of execution of Krishna consciousness, parallelly understanding that their sincerity is insufficient to help them achieve their purpose. So one has to be very, very sincere, not indifferent to their efforts to develop that intensity in Krishna consciousness. But at the same time, one has to understand that ultimately it depends on the mercy of Krishna. So this Achintya Bheda Bheda consciousness is the path to success. One has to try as if I am the only person who can save myself. With that intensity, one has to try everything. But at the same time, in the core of the heart, one has to know that whatever I do is insufficient. Ultimately, everything depends on the mercy of God. So these two combined consciousness, these two simultaneous humility as well as activity, will lead to chastity in Krishna consciousness. So with that, I would like to conclude today's discussion. Today also happens to be the disappearance day of Srila Ramanujacharya. So he's one of the principal acharyas, he's the acharya of the Sri Sampradaya line, incarnation of Ananta Shesh, propounder of the Vishishta Dvaita philosophy, who said that although there is similarity in the qualities of the Jiva and the Supreme Jiva, or the Supreme Paramatma, Super Soul and Soul, although there are some similarities between Jivatma and Supreme Personality of Godhead, but still, in terms of quantity, there is huge difference. So this concept was started to be preached by Srila Ramanujacharya. There is a very nice pastime of Srila Ramanujacharya, which I find it very close to my heart. Interaction of Sripad Ramanujacharya with Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Srila Ramanujacharya, Sripad Ramanujacharya was not a contemporary of Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. However, he actually had a meeting with Sripad Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I have found that instance where this incident is described, and I am going to read it. Once while Sripad Ramanujacharya was staying in Jagannath Puri, he offered his prayers to Jagannath, who became very pleased. Lord Jagannath appeared before Sri Ramanujacharya and said, Ramanuja, go and visit Sri Navadvipa, for very soon I will appear there in the house of Sri Jagannath Mishra. Sri Navadvipa is my most beloved abode and is a part of my spiritual sky manifest in this world. As my eternal servant and a leader amongst my devotees, you should go there. Don't take your students, for they are absorbed in the Dasya Rasa, and they will not understand the advanced devotional mood of spontaneous love of Godhead, which will be displayed in Navadvipa. You'd please travel alone. Any living entity who has not gone to see Sri Navadvipa has been born uselessly. Just one portion of Sri Navadvipa contains Ranga Kshetra, Venkateshwara, and Yadavachala. Therefore, go to Navadvip and see my form as Gauranga. Folding his hands, Sri Ramanujacharya humbly requested Lord Jagannath, My dear Lord, you have mercifully told me something about Gauranga, but who exactly he is, I don't know. The Lord replied, It is known to you that Sri Krishna, the Lord of Goloka, is the Supreme Absolute Truth. That much is well known to my devotees. That same Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who resides in Sri Vrindavana, is fully manifest as Gauranga, and his beloved abode, Sri Vrindavan, is manifest as the holy Sri Navadvipa. Navadvipa is the supreme spiritual abode and is transcendental to the influence of material nature. If anyone thinks that Sri Navadvipa is only a material location, then whatever devotion he has developed will wither and perish. By my will, by my inconceivable energy, preserves this transcendental abode within this material world. Simply by studying the scriptures, my dear Ramanuja, one will not be able to understand the absolute truth. Only by my mercy can my devotees understand. Hearing these words of Lord Jagannath, Sripad Ramanujacharya was filled with love. My dear Lord, he said, your pastimes are truly astounding. The scriptures cannot fully describe your opulence. Why is this Gauranga Leela not described in the scriptures? My dear Lord, after reflection, I find the hint of Gauranga Tattva in the Shrutis and Puranas. Now, however, all my doubts are gone and I am ready to execute your will. If it is your desire, I will go to Sri Navadvip from here, and after that I will set out to preach about your form as Lord Gauranga in all the three worlds, giving evidence from the scriptures and converting them to the devotional service of Lord Gauranga. Please instruct me, I am ready to go. Lord Jagannath replied, No. Sripad Ramanuja, do not broadcast in this way. Keep the secret of Lord Gauranga's pastimes as they are for the present. Only after I have concluded my pastimes as Sri Krishna Chaitanya will the people in general come to understand them. Preach about me at the level of Dasya Rasa, as you have always done, but within your heart, constantly worship me as Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Following Lord Jagannath's order, Sripad Ramanujacharya secretly cultivated his attraction for Gauranga. Being very merciful, Lord Narayan led him to Vaikuntapura and showed him his transcendental form worshipped by manifestations of his different energies. Sripad Ramanujacharya felt most fortunate to see, but as he continued to watch, the Narayan form manifested his form as Gauranga, the son of Jagannath Mishra. Sripad Ramanujacharya's mind became stunned by the brilliance of the shining golden form of Lord Gauranga. Sripad Ramanujacharya said, I must see your pastimes when you appear in Navadvipa, my lord. I shall never leave this place. Lord Gauranga replied, your wish will be fulfilled. O son of Keshava, when my Navadvip Leela is revealed, you will again take birth in Sri Navadvipa Dham. Lord Gauranga then disappeared, greatly satisfied by the Lord's promise. Sripad Ramanujacharya returned to Kurukshetra, where he joined his disciples. During his life, he preached the devotional service to the Lord in the mood of Dasya Rasa, while internally he was always absorbed in meditating on the pastimes of Gauranga. And by Lord Gauranga's mercy, he was again born in Sri Navadvipa as a devotee named Ananta to assist in the Lord's pastimes. When Lord Chaitanya made his appearance in Navadvipa, Ananta Vipra was already very old. He lived in a cottage which was situated beneath a huge banyan tree. There, within his humble abode, he used to worship the deities of Lakshmi Narayan. No one could describe the pure way in which he worshipped them. Ananta was a very dear friend and a neighbor of Sri Vallabha Mishra. Sri Vallabha was very affectionate to him and treated him as his disciple. On the most glorious day when Lord Gaur Sundar accepted Srimati Lakshmi Priya as his wife at Mishra's house, a huge festival was held and Ananta was also invited. As Anant Vipra stood watching Lord Chaitanya and Srimati Lakshmi Priya sitting together during their marriage ceremony, dressed in gorgeous silk and jewels, he realized that they were none other than his beloved Sri Lakshmi Narayan. Unable to control his spontaneous emotions, he began to dance like a madman. His hair stood on the end and his whole body trembled. Understanding, however, his activities might seem a little inappropriate, he finally controlled himself and returned to his house. Entering his house, he sat down before his Sri Lakshmi Narayan deities and again became overwhelmed with ecstatic love. He began to consider how his beloved lordships had now manifested as Gauranga and Lakshmi Priya. He thought, I am so fortunate to have personally seen him, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I am so fallen and insignificant. As he sat there, Lord Gauranga, being very satisfied by his humility and devotion, appeared before him. The Lord was a beautiful golden color, and his bodily effulgence was brighter than millions of moons. He was dressed in first-class silks and decorated with valuable jewels. He sat on a fabulous golden throne which was studded with gems, and Sri Lakshmi Devi at his side. O my beloved devotee, by my will you have seen this form. Anyone who sees my form has fulfilled all his desires. Then after placing his lotus feet on Ananta's head, the Lord departed. Ananta became totally absorbed in remembrance of Sri Gauranga's Navadvip pastimes. Sripad Ramanujacharya ki, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki. Thank you very much. We'll have our discussion here. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram.